Hey guys, so I wanted to pick up where I left off on the last, I guess, two tutorials. The first one on bases, so I'm going to be doing some priming, prime all these bases, and then also at the same time going to be priming these wolves using a very similar painting technique for both of them, so washes and dry brushes. So the first thing I always do is make sure that my airbrush is cleaned out from the last time. So if you don't have an airbrush and you prime your models with spray paint, you can skip this step. But I really like the airbrush. It's really versatile and allows me to do all my priming and painting inside, which is really nice. So one thing you gotta do is make sure it is staying clean. And so what I just did was kind of take all the pieces off. And then the way the airbrush works is there's a pin that runs all the way through this that can get paint on it. And so I just take my pliers, and you don't want to bend it. Let's have a lot of paint goobed in there, so you want to be careful not to bend it. So pull it straight out. So probably should have cleaned that better before storing it last time. And then what I do is just take my hobby knife and cut off all the excess paint and kind of residue that gets built up here. So yeah, so all of that. And then I'm just going to put it back in. And so again, you want to be careful putting it back in. And then I'm just going to kind of work it back and forth in here. So I'm guessing there's probably some built up residue kind of in the funnel also, down the whole tube line. So then let's put it back together. For this one I put the spring on, and then screw this piece in, and then this piece to tighten it all down, and then put the end on. So when turn the power of the airbrush on, let the compressor fill up. So you want to make sure that you can press down fine and also pull back fine. So that seems good now. So next step is my primer. So I usually use the Citadel Imperial black primer and then thin it down with some air cast thinner. But it seems to be out at all of my local games workshops and even the hobby store. So bought this kind of generic primer, which works good. Let's clean this bottle off. So what I have in here is the primer, kind of somewhat pre-mixed with the air cast, the air cast thinner. So I'm just gonna fill it up from this bottle, and then it does look a little thick. Kind of takes a little getting used to, kind of how thin you want to make this. So I'm just using this airdrop or eyedropper thing I got actually with my airbrush. I'm gonna add some thinner to it, and so I'll just set that aside. And then so you can mix this with another brush. Usually keep one kind of an old crummy brush. You can mix this together, and then you want to be careful splattering. You don't want to get black paint on things you don't want. And then this is a trick learned from someone. Airbrush is making a weird noise. I'm just going to turn the compressor off. But if you hold your finger over the nozzle and then press down and pull back, it forces air into the pot. And so that does a really good job of mixing it. It's also very handy when cleaning it. You can put water inside and do the same thing. So let me turn this guy back on. Okay, my compressor's back to normal. So let's, I'll just start priming with these wolves. My My compressor is on the same table as the camera, so it might get a little shaky here. Sorry about that. Cool, that one's done. Mix this paint a little bit more with that technique. On to the next one. So first start off trying to get, kind of full coverage with broad strokes, and then look for anywhere that the primer didn't reach and hit that. Usually kind of on the inside of things. These little nooks and crannies. Cool. Check this one again. A little bit on the front of the face I missed. Alright, still doing good. One more mix. Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to set my airbrush off to the side. And so one thing I forgot to do with these smaller ones that I like to do is to put them on corks. And so I have a couple corks. These ones have matchsticks for mounting guys on them. So what I want to do is, it'll be easier to paint these bases if they are on cork, so I can, get all to the edges and everything. With these size bases, they have these kind of slots for pre-drilled holes. Those get in the way for this, so I'm just going to use my clippers and trim these things off. Cool. So then I can just use my super glue. Just put a little bit of super glue because you don't want this to be too hard to get off. So just let that rest on there. So I'll do the next one. Trim all these little rings off. Okay, a little dab of super glue. Rest that on there. Alright, then on to the last one. Cool. Okay. So I'm gonna set these aside to dry. The big base for the repulsor is so big that I found I don't need to mount it on anything for painting. So I'm gonna start priming that one. Get my airbrush again. Mix the paint just a little bit. So also because the repulsor one, I have this spot in the center where the stand goes. So I kind of just hold it and spin it around like that, like a record. So I'll just get in, prime this whole thing. So when priming these bases with the layers of rocks, you really want to kind of get it from the side. And then on the inner side, you do want to prime, the plastic also, so you still want to do that. Okay, seems pretty good. So set that aside. Looks like these bases are dried now. So now they're really easy to work with. Just going slow with the airbrush, back and forth. Oh, that one needs a little bit more glue. So this one didn't really stick, so I'll just put a little bit more. Press it down. Okay, I'll let that one dry. Do that last. So. Out of paint, so I'm gonna add some more primer, just a little bit, because I'm really close to being done, and probably just like a drop or two of the thinner. I'm just gonna mix that around by forcing air back into the pot. Still good. All right, last base. Cool. So that's all the bases. I still have some black paint in here, and so what I'm going to do is take the top off of this primer bottle And so I'm going to pour this back in here. You need to remember when you've added thinner and when what paint you're working with. So for example, the base I always add a thinner to, so it's fine to pour the paint back in. But when I move on to my next color here, which is Mechanicus Standard Gray, I don't have any thinner in this, and I don't want thinner in there because I use that with brushes too. So for that one, I wouldn't ever want to pour the paint back into the pot. So the next thing I'm going to do is clean. Should have kept my water a little cleaner, but that's okay for this next step. So I usually made a mistake and dirtied my water, but that's fine because the next color we're going to use is gray, so it doesn't have to be super clean in the airbrush. So put some water in here and let it bubble up. Okay, so then the next color I'm going to put in here, it's going to be this gray. I should shake it first also. So that's probably pretty good. And then so this one, this is a base color meant for brushes, so definitely want to add a good amount of the air cast thinner to this. Then mix it up with my mixing brush. I think I made it a little too thin, and I think I need more than what I have in here, so going to add some more. Okay. So I'll just mix that up. Cool, that looks good. Okay, so I'll start with the repulsor base. This is going to be my base color for the stone, so I'm just going to paint everything with this color. I need to mix it a little bit, get it a little thinner. There we go. So again, going around the edge. Cool, so that looks pretty good. So we'll move on to the smaller bases, so these should be pretty quick. let's try to work that out. There we go. Okay, so then I'm going to use the same color on two of the wolves. So one of the wolves I want to be like a white wolf. So I'm actually going to now put down a base color of gray and then white on top of that. The other wolf I want to be, actually I'm thinking about it now. I think I'm going to use a dark gray. So I'll have a white wolf, a kind of like mint black wolf, and a gray or a brown wolf. So I'm actually only going to paint one of these wolves with this color. Alright, so I'm going to take a little break because it's getting pretty hot in here. I'm not running the AC, so we don't have that constant buzzing in the video. So I'm going to take a little break, also clean my airbrush out properly, and then move on to the next color, which will be this brown. So watch out for that video. See you soon.